Hi. We are now going to read the latest chapter of Houseki no Kuni. This is a series where I watched the anime when it had come out, and I had always wanted to read the manga because I had heard such good things about it. Only recently did I actually get a chance. I marathoned through the whole thing like really quickly. I just was so caught up and transfixed, and just the constant swirl of mystery and revelation, with that revelation only deepening the greater sense of mystery. I think it's quite an amazing series. So if you've only watched the anime, you really should get caught up. There's going to be like really major spoilers in just a few seconds. If you haven't even watched the anime and you're just clicking this video because it's like, oh, Kitsu's reading a new manga, what the heck is this? I would check it out. It's so unique and so strange that there's a very it's not necessarily for everyone, but there's a small percentage of people that are going to absolutely love it. And you should find out if you're one of those people. Okay, with that in mind, I picked a really exciting time to get caught up. Holy crap. In the absolute last measure, this really feels like it should be the absolute climax of this series. Phos has led the gems, the moon gems, back to Earth, along with all of the Lunarian army, in order to just destroy everyone as this absolute last-ditch measure to make Sensei pray. So, Sensei, of course, as you ought to know if you're watching this video, was revealed to be kind of an android, a machine built by humans before the final apocalyptic event in order to pray for them, so that their souls can finally be sent to nirvana instead of just wailing and in misery and boredom on the purgatory that is the moon. I thought this twist, this kind of final revelation of the nature of the series, was amazing. It was just such a bizarre idea. It felt so kind of significant. It had this kind of like sacredness to it. Just the idea of a prayer machine I thought was so cool. Another friend of mine who also started reading the manga and getting caught up at the same time as me said he thought it was stupid. So your mileage may vary, but I always thought, the sensei being a prayer machine thing, that's really cool. But he can't pray, and it's not quite clear why he can't pray. The Lunarians revealed that if Sensei actually prays to send away the Lunarians, that it may destroy the slugs and stuff on the moon as well as destroying all of the gems. And it seems like Phos is just kind of like cool with that. That Phos has gotten to the point where she's just so friggin' fed up with everything that she's down for the annihilation of all sentient life. I guess that was my understanding, right? Is that right? That Sensei praying will destroy everybody? But it's not clear if Sensei is not praying because of that or if he's not praying because of some other reason. He says that he's broken, that there's some serious defects. He's also unable to explain certain things as like part of his programming, or perhaps as because of the defects. Where we know that he is actually capable of praying when Phos on her previous Earth raid, after being reassembled by Sensei, forcefully put his hands together in prayer, and it like worked. So it seems more like Sensei has some sort of mental block or an unwillingness to do so. I don't think it's an unwillingness to do so because he knows it'll sacrifice the gems, because he clearly had stopped praying long before the gems came around. It's confusing. It's mysterious. It's unclear whether it's confusing because it's mysterious or because of forgotten plot points or because the series is just so weird that it never will make sense. Anyways, now Super Scary Phos has decided that the only way to make Sensei pray is just to annihilate all of the gems on Earth, just because it's something they haven't tried yet. Let's see how it pans out for her. This chapter is called Nature, Experimentation in the World to Come, which is a mind-blowing chapter title, considering the previous chapter was all just gem-on-gem action. Not in a sexual way, unfortunately. Not in a sexual way. In a battling way. In a violent way. Ice cream? What? Close descended to the earth to crush the gems into dust. Meanwhile on the moon. Oh, we're on the moon. Okay, that makes more sense. And here we see, shoot, I can't think of his name now. What? He used to be Ghost Quartz. Then the part of Ghost Quartz that was truly him became the whole thing. And I can't think of the new name. Sorry, Ghost Quartz, ex-Ghost Quartz. This is a little ice cream shop on the moon, I guess. I love all the Lunarian characters. The way they, like, so quickly and decisively inverted the way we conceived of the Lunarians. But before, like, they were just these bizarre, like, floating alien things. And now they're by far, like, the most human and relatable characters. Just so good. Muscat, pink, mint, pink chocolate, lemonade, champagne lemon. Those are some crazy flavors. Muscat mint. Sorry, I'm having a hard time pronouncing that. Muscat mint. I have some Muscat grapes actually. They're on sale at my grocery store. A lot of fresh food is on sale because probably a lot of people are not buying regularly anymore. They're just panic buying. Anyways, I don't want to talk about that. Anyways, I got these grapes for cheap. They're really good. And the most human emotion is vengeance. That all. Yup. What does that mean? The most human emotion is vengeance. Maybe the smallest moon, but there's so much space. This is their little honeymoon, I guess. They went to one of the other moons. Since the Earth was 6 times striked, 6 moons have appeared. This be the thing you wanted to lock me away in. Never. He runs off. I like that he's carrying around one of the little doggy pet things that became such a sensation on the Earth as they were on the moon. Were humans things sort of like phosphorite? Come to think of it, you wanted to make a human a long time ago, didn't you? You're right to quit. That's right, we saw their human development labs where they were trying to put back together a human out of the 3 constituent parts. You were right to quit. It's really interesting because one of the things that's really fascinating to me about this series is that it speaks like philosophically. It speaks kind of like to the nature of character, to identity, to role and purpose. These very human themes, but all of the characters are so inhuman that it never like normally, you know, you can say that about, I don't know, a series about talking animals or something. and the talking animal series will probably talk about some aspects, you know, like we were watching Brand New Animal, the Trigger series, like Zootopia or Beastars. The animal thing is an aspect of their philosophy. They do talk about what it means to be like a carnivorous animal. And then, but really it's like those could just be kind of types of people. Like they still in the end are talking about human qualities. But the series, I think, has done a fantastic job of really making the gems still feel inhuman. That when they talk about these things, it's not like feeling like they're just weird humans, but that it's something else entirely. So here that they're finally talking about the nature of humanity, that in itself actually feels more alien, if that makes sense. In times of crisis, there are 2 conditions for making adamant prey. The first is adamant recognizes a human as present. Oh, so this is getting back to the nature of his malfunction. So what made him stop was the final apocalyptic event, which wiped out all the current humans on the moon, who then had no one to pray for them. But we know that other people, I guess, who had been prayed for during their lives, perhaps, still were able to go into oblivion. And it's only these poor souls who never were prayed for that needed Adamant to pray for them. Okay. The other one is a belief that one can be lustrated. What the heck is this term, lustrated? This is boring to you? That would be so frustrating if character name unremembered was so bored that we didn't get to hear lore. Belief in lustration is entrusting oneself entirely to adamant, a power beyond human capability, the sincerest of wishes for existence to end. Should I stop talking about it? It's like it feels like they're speaking to the readers. That this playful prince is teasing the readership a little bit, knowing that the readership is so desperate for this lore. Excuse me, I'm a little burpy for some reason. This means that in order for an outsider to intentionally start him, you need a human that wants, in his own right, for adamant to prey. He really does want to stop talking. He knows he's being 99% ignored. He's only speaking to the reader now. As of late, I've found that instead of using a genuine Homo sapiens, it would be easier to fulfill Adamant's requirement with a pseudo-human made from a gem. Ooh, whoa. Fosa's like almost there. Because she has... Oh, sorry, I keep saying she. I'm misgendering the gems. For some reason, I think the fact that they all use male pronouns, they all use boku and stuff, adds something to the quality of it. I don't really know what. It's not a gender thing. It has nothing to do with like, gender expression and stuff like that. Which of course is something very interesting and dear to me as well. But it's something else. It's something just again to emphasize this distinction from humanity, this separation from humanity. At any rate, I try to always use he. Recently, a friend of mine watched the anime. He hated it. It's pretty rare for me to talk to someone who watched this whole thing and hated it. Because normally people, after like 30 seconds, are like, this is weird, I don't like it. But he stuck through the whole thing, which I think is quite admirable of him. And he had some criticisms that I thought were quite interesting. We won't get into it now. But what made me really happy is that he referred to all the gems as he and him and stuff. That he picked that up and that he thought that was cool too, that he thought that was somehow an important part of the series. I was like, yeah. Anyway, so Fos, he's pretty close. Fos has the legs made of the shell, of course, the body of a gem. And lately, I don't know if you've seen Fos lately, but he's looking pretty crazy. So it wouldn't surprise me if all of his time on the moon somehow imbued some Lunarian quality onto him as well, such that now he actually has all three aspects of being a human: the soul, the flesh, and the bone. Maybe. And it looks like Ghost Court's new self, name forgotten, sorry, has realized, you're not turning me into a human, are you? Oh, so that actually is the prince's plan, to turn him into a human. But no, we know, I think Fos is becoming the human. You wouldn't want him to pray anyway. That's true. It's unclear. He seems kind of not down with the whole annihilation of everything plan. That seems to be maybe a small sticking point between him and the prince. And there was a while that he was like, I'm going to learn how to die too. I'm going to annihilate myself as well. Such that it's like really unclear like how the gems die. Because basically it's like they have like this continuous consciousness that's just inherent to the specific complex structuring of their matter, which isn't really an outrageous thing, because if you think about how our brains work, all of our sensation and stuff is physically represented by the emergent complexity of interacting neurons in our brain, right? I hope that's something I can just say right, because if we want to get into like duality and like metaphysical spaces for consciousness, or like quantum consciousness, or anything that's messier than just a physical brain doing physical things, then we're going to need like a 2-hour long video. But if we can agree to that at least, that the brain is a physical object, and therefore the seat of consciousness must be physical, then it's not so different that if our brain was scattered to the wind into a million pieces, and then eventually was reconstructed just as it was, then in terms of our sensations, in terms of our consciousness, I don't even think there would be a break. It would just be like waking up. Uh, so that seems to be how the gems operate too. The difference, of course, being that our brain is like a fleshy, living object, and that if you try to scatter it to 1,000 pieces, each one of those pieces decays instantly and can't just be reconnected again. Whereas the gems, being creatures of mineral, each of those pieces, although not conscious on its own, still is just as good as when it was a thinking thing. Oh, the series is friggin' crazy. What kind of thing did I just say now? That was such a strange tangent that was so perfectly natural to take and yet just makes me ask so many questions about the nature of consciousness and minds and computers and reality and whew, let's just move on. We've already made a human. Yeah, that's Phos, baby. Phospholite spent 300 years after his birth with no place. No deep relationships with his peers. And even Adamant couldn't offer him a role. Ooh. Ooh. See, this is something that my friend had as kind of like a criticism, that he thought Phos was like a very weak character and that it felt unrealistic to him. Like we were talking a lot about how one of the things I think is really cool is the fact that their civilization has been running basically as it has been for like hundreds and hundreds of years, and yet it's still so simple, it's still so like repetitive, that there's something kind of like calm and like sacred about it almost. It has that kind of energy. And he's like, okay, well, if that's the case, then what's up with Phos? Like, doesn't that seem unrealistic that Phos has just been dicking around for 300 years? And I was like, oh, no, that's like the charm of Phos, you know? But it's even more than that. It's actually like a plot point that Phos is so useless. Therein, I sense the possibility. Made Phospholite into a human. Dude, he does not look like a human. This is the least human that Phos has ever looked. But okay, Phos is a human. Phospholite acquired parts of the 3 descendants of humans. Then I gave him many opportunities to be a pseudo-human through a natural course of events he would follow through on. He received straying legs from the Admiralis and newfound dexterity from his alloy arms, and yet he was still too pure. The key element was attaching lapis lazuli's head. A clever mind is fatal. Wait, so they actually planned all of this. The prince actually planned literally all of this. Whoa, okay. So at first I was like we're led to believe that they're just obsessed with Phos because they think his minty green color is awesome. And I took that as like, yeah, that makes sense. And the dumping the shell plan, that just seemed like a good way to like attack them. And then later when it was like, yeah, we're trying to get all the dust so that we can shock Sensei into praying, make him feel so hopeless that he just wants to pray. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. So the shell plan lined up with that. It was just a good method of attack. And then when they took Phos's head, it wasn't just because, you know, that was part of the attack plan, that was part of the Dust All Gems plan. All of this was actually just trying to make Phos into a human. Holy, what? Furthermore, you had a special purpose. And Tark, Ghost, Padpar, Radsha, I have a hard time pronouncing all these gem names, and all the other gems actively helped Phospholite to grow in their own ways. But you are different. While you had a mental disorder, you were unwillingly made to babysit him. Oh, what? Yeah, so this was the influence of Ghost Quartz. That was another really good twist, by the way. That like the new Ghost Quartz, sorry, name still forgotten, was forced to babysit Fos, and he hated it, and yet he still kept feeling compelled to do it. And I thought again, like, haha, this is just kind of Fos's charm, that he's always kind of somehow getting people to do what he wants, even though, you know, he's such a screw up and stuff. Um, but it wasn't just, as the series has done several times, that things that you thought were just kind of like, oh, haha, what a weird, quirky thing, turned out to have like grave plot implications. That it was actually kind of the subtle programming of Ghost Quartz making him act like that. And they were able to physically remove that part because that's how the gems work. Phospholite was stable when you were there. For some reason, it worried me greatly. As thanks and an apology for the most important 100 years of my plan, I prepared that residence for you. Wait, so is the prince not actually interested in him? Oh, was their love not genuine? It was just all part of his scheme? Aw, I feel so bad for him if that's the case. What in the world? But let's just say you fell free. Oh, so that was his original plan. Okay, that was his original plan because he just wanted to isolate Ghost Quartz, specifically Ghost Quartz, like that part of his personality. Um, these are some. By the way, I haven't talked about the art at all because trying to talk about the art of the series is just crazy. It's so unique. It's so wild. It's so bizarrely depicted. Like the paneling choices and stuff are sometimes so weird. Just such a unique aesthetic. But I will say, even though it's tough to really go into detail about how it all works, these are some really erotic shots. This is not what I expect generally. Anyways, yeah, so he just wanted to get Ghost Quartz away from Fos to continue with this make Fos go crazy, make Sensei pray plan, make Fos into a human. A vengeful, irrational human, I guess, that can spitefully wish for the annihilation of all, I guess, is what's happening. Um, but then, yeah, he fell for this new Ghost Quartz, and now the plan changed. Okay. Finally, Phospholite came to the moon, acquired the 3 descendants, fell into despair enough to wish for the end of existence, and felt vengeance. Adamant and the gems, the Admirabilis, you and the moon, everyone did their part. To raise him into a magnificent human. Yes, this is what I recall a human being looking like. Jeez. This series, man. Friggin' crazy. This has to be like the endgame arc, right? What more can happen after this? At the same time, there's still so much stuff we haven't seen. Like, there's so many gems that we don't get to meet, I guess. But I'm so curious about. I want to meet like Red Diamond. What is Red Diamond like? The original gem. Adamant's gonna do something this time, right? Is that what you wanted? Yeah. Actually, Adamant won't pray anymore. So is this the defect? I thought it was just like he stopped praying because there were no humans, I guess. I was like, okay, maybe that's the explanation. You're very lucky he booted the last 2 times, but we got confirmation that he has a fatal error. So the last time was Foes deliberately putting his hands together. Then there was the previous time where Foes just asked him, and he's like, all right, I guess I'll try it, and it didn't work. So both times there was a fatal error. They confirmed. Because the first time, I guess they thought maybe he just stopped. Maybe he just stopped because he knew that it would be the end of all existence. The second time, Fos was physically forcing him to do it, and it still stopped. What am I gonna do? What will I do? Will they get Sensei to go to the moon and fix them? Right? I feel like that's within their capabilities, maybe. Like, it seems like there's some sort of defect above and beyond ideological concerns or, yeah, willingness or anything like that. First, I'm going to make him better than a human. Do you believe me if I told you that this is only the beginning? Dude, I just said, I think this is the end of the series. I literally just said, I literally believe that there would be like only a volume after this at most. And now I'm made to believe that this is only the beginning? Maybe. Oh, Jesus. If we had a being called a child, I told you it was getting really erotic. You know? I chose that word deliberately. And hoped for his true happiness. I'd want to give the 3 races a future other than this dead end. Okay, so basically, we've got the gems that can never die. And then we've got, but they don't really have qualities of humanity. We've got the moon people that are full of the qualities of humanity, but they can never die. And they've expended all hope. They've bored themselves to tears. And key among these 2 immortal groups is that it's just the same people. Every once in a while, there'll be a new gem. Every once in a while, a gem will be like reincarnated. But the moon people are just the same set of people this entire time. And the gems are basically the same set of people. Then we have the Amirbilis, or whatever they're called, that actually do have generations, that do have succession, that are replaced by whole new sets of people each time. But they seem quite uncivilized. They seem kind of dumb, relatively speaking. And again, there's not like a hope. They're just going to kind of keep on living, reproducing, dying. So this idea of hope, a future other than this dead end. Could there actually be a happy ending to this series? For quite a while now, ever since I learned about this total annihilation possibility, I really thought this series would end with just everything crumbles away and we fade to black. And I was like, whoa, that if they did that, I would be like so impressed, like holy shit. But I don't know, maybe they're actually gonna have a happy ending. I mean, I think there's a happiness or a completeness, a contentment in the ending I described. But this could be even more powerful. The worst taste of anyone ever in gifts, so I know they're not gonna like it. Look. Ooh, the dark side of the moon is approaching. Night is falling on the moon. Jeez, the art in this series. They do this kind of inversion thing quite a lot too, and I'm always stunned by it. This is the deepest crater on the 6 moons. The very bottom is a layer of high purity ice. What are you supposed to do with it? This. Really? Gem memories seem to prefer crystals with high purity. Rabada and the others will come too, so I'd like to analyze this together. Speaking of ice, so we already know that, like, and this again, this could be a long tangent, so I'm sorry in advance, but that the way that the crystals live is like just a certain key configuration of physical crystals in their minds, or well, in their whole bodies, that is, which serve as their minds, allows them to like have qualia, have sensations, allows them to have consciousness, consideration, and internal monologue, allows them to have memory, to store things, to recall them voluntarily. That all of this is embedded within physical crystals. The property by which memories are set and qualia is processed, unclear at this time, and probably will just remain unclear. But that's kind of the magic of the gems, is that some certain configuration allowed that to be possible. Okay, so then later it was established that Fos could hear voices from the ice flows, that the crystalline structure of the ice, it's kind of like if you have a computer, that exists in a world of ones and zeros, has this entirely binary understanding of memory. That if you just started being like 0 1 0 1 1 0 0 1 1 1 1 0 0 1 0 1 0 0 1 0 0 1 1 1 1 0 0 1, like it probably would be nonsense, but a computer encountering this sort of thing in the wild or whatever, it would like hit it on such a deep level that like, oh, this is the same stuff from which my memories are formed. I can try to put it in some sort of encoding and format where it kind of makes sense to me. And that's why Fos kept hearing things that kind of spoke to her insecurities and stuff, because it was like his subconscious was like trying to make some sense out of this kind of just garbled garbage data being spewed by the crystalline structure of the ice flows, just because it overlaps in structure, like the computer hearing 10010101110101011101011, right? Encountering any sort of crystalline structure, it's like you try to read it, or to use a more human example, it's like when you see things that kind of look like letters, you instinctively kind of read them, even though a second later you're like, oh, this is just happens to be some markings that kind of look like a letter. Okay, sorry. Anyway, so now they have this hyper pure ice. They're going to carve a person out of it, maybe? And then they send him to Earth, and he just melts, and they're like, shoot. Okay. It's almost time for me to go to Earth. Jeez. Okay, this series is freaking crazy. All right. There'll be a break next month to prepare the limited edition volume. Okay. Well, I'll see you in 2 months, I guess, to talk more about this madness. This beautiful, beautiful madness that is Houseki no Kuni. Believe that one can be lustrated. Akamea is referring to a concept called Taraki Hogen. That is the belief that one who has done wrong in life can pray earnestly to Amet Ba and be absolved of negative karma. They can then focus on achieving enlightenment without the suffering of mortal life. So this is a lot kind of like confession in Catholicism, I think, where basically you ought to unburden yourself of your sins, be forgiven, and this will allow you to live more virtuously. That you need to be absolved of something. You need to kind of be put back up to zero before you can start climbing up to positive goodness. I think this concept exists in a lot of religions. Interesting. Okay, thank you as always to Black Hat Scanlations. I'm sure this series is not easy to translate because you're often being like, what the hell is going on? All right, let's look forward to the next chapter.